All right, so today's video, we're doing Reddit Reacts. A pretty good one to start here because I feel like this is very relevant to the current season. If you haven't noticed, Pharah's in your games a lot. And that's what this thread here by, what is it, Milkoi Boss is starting with, saying 8 years later, Pharah-Mercy still ruins every single game. They say, so 1 month ago I started playing Overwatch again. And I've never played so good. I climbed from Plat 5 to mid-high diamond where I'm stuck now. My aim has gotten crazy good, and I've been dropping 30 plus limbs most games. But even so, since the new season started, I have noticed a lot of people playing Pharah-Mercy. I always thought this combo is way too strong, but somehow, now, it's even worse. The thing is, after 8 years and a lot of improvement, this duo still ruins almost every game. I usually play Soldier and just try to keep pressure on them, but even that feels hopeless. In fact, it somehow feels like they're the ones pressuring me. So, before we continue on with the rest of the sentence there, that is exactly what's happening. Right now, the reason why Pharah is so strong is because, like, you do so much damage, the splash damage is unreal, so that even when you miss a little bit, you're just doing a bunch of damage, and your shots are just hitting way more because they had changed the projectile a while back. The problem that's happening is that for a while when hitscan was very dominant, right, where you had heroes like Sojourn, you had Cassidy being played a ton, which Cassidy has still played a ton, Widow, Ashe, etc., Pharah didn't play as well, and at the same time, players weren't quite used to the new Pharah, because there was a bit of a rework. But what the rework did was, rework made Pharah a little bit less of, like, being in the skybox, and more of, like, that echo-based playstyle. It allows for you to be in your face more, but Pharah also has so much survivability now with the extra HP, and the ability to do so much damage that, like, if you try to make a play at any point, you have to be pretty much perfect against the Pharah. And if you're not, they're going to roll you. And that's kind of where I think the frustration level is with a lot of players, and what was just mentioned in that sentence is that when you finally do go to make that play on the Pharah, you just fall over. Because the Pharah can do so much quick damage to you that if you're not perfect, they're going to just destroy you. And that's where the problem runs in itself. There's a reason why Pharah has an unmirrored 58% win rate currently. Now, that could shift like a percentage down or a percentage up, because players will hear that and more players will play that. I'm seeing it in quick play. I'm seeing it in ranked. Pharah is dominating lobbies, and I would not doubt it if by the next midseason patch, if not sooner, we see some type of change to kind of shift that win rate down a little bit. It doesn't have to go to like 40%, right? But it's certainly a frustration level for a lot of players right now. I'll continue on with the rest of the sentence. They say, Pharah just keeps spamming crazy high damage rockets at me with no pause while I have to dodge them and somehow also shoot at the Pharah. And I have a little bit of side point to that in a second. With these new updates, HP buff, Pharah mobility buff, Mercy healing buff. A little side note on this one, you mentioned the Mercy healing buff. I don't know what you're referencing there, but what I will say is, like, the Mercy isn't as good in those comps. I don't think there's been a Mercy healing buff. If you're referencing, like, old buffs, I'll be honest with you, at this point, the moment you shoot the Pharah, you're already reducing the healing by 20% on the Pharah. So, a lot of the time, it isn't the healing of the Mercy that's going to really benefit the Pharah, it's the damage boost. It's definitely possible to kill through the pocket now, in comparison to any points in Overwatch. So, don't be, like, it's not about the Pharah is unkillable at that point. It's that you have to be perfect with your shots to be able to kill the Pharah. But the heal itself is like, if you're a DPS player and you're shooting at the Pharah, you're going to be at 20% healing reduction at all times, which definitely isn't going to be good. One of the issues you've probably heard from Mercy is, for Mercy players especially, is that, like, there isn't as much value happening right now, with pretty much just in general, because, like, you're at 20% less healing at all times, essentially. Which it's an interesting concept because it doesn't allow Mercy to heal tanks as much. And it forces Mercy to be into that pocket, so you have a little bit less of, like, a decision-making. But, yeah, that's a whole different discussion. I know a lot of people have wanted a bit of a Mercy buff, or, like, the power shifted elsewhere. But anyway, they say it generally feels impossible to kill them unless you're a God Widowmaker. I've tried all tips against them, keeping pressure, focusing on other targets, etc. But come on, we all know nothing really works when you try it in-game. If I stop focusing on Pharah, then she'll just dominate the whole game. The only way I can win against the Pharah-Mercy is if I have a very competent team. Am I the only one who feels this way? No, you're not. I'm probably dropping the game for good just because of this. It's just not fun to play against that combo. It really feels like they have an unfair advantage, and there's nothing you can do. So just to, once again, to kind of, like, talk about this discussion again with Pharah-Mercy. Yes, Pharah-Mercy's dominating. You're not the only one who feels this way. You're seeing this in pretty much every rank now, which is very interesting because Pharah's always been one of those heroes that has dominated metal ranks, and Pharah and Reaper were those two heroes, which is why you've seen those heroes kind of get shifted a lot. But now you're even seeing it in the top 500 because it's just most Pharahs are playing distance. They have really fast rockets. They just splash damage you down. I think actually, and I don't know if people like agree or disagree with this, but if you played Overwatch 1, if you remember like 2CP maps where like you felt like you couldn't get through a choke and you were constantly getting spammed out in those chokes, remember how like it was constant spam damage happening the whole time through those chokes? I feel like what we've seen personally is a lot of, it basically feels like you're playing a 2CP choke the whole game. You can't hide behind walls. You take random spam damage at all times. It just feels like you're playing a 2CP choke, except you're just playing the whole map because Pharah is constantly just spamming you out. You could even argue even more frustrating than against like a Junkrat. Yeah, that's kind of what I see with that. So you're not like the only one feeling that way. Number one comment is they say every day I feel genuine joy knowing I'm a decent D.Va player. Honestly, I get that. I'm gonna be honest with you though too. I don't even feel like the matchup as D.Va right now against Pharah is like even like amazing because most of the Pharahs, and this is, obviously it changes from rank to rank, but most of the Pharahs in top 500 just play really far range until they need to be close range. So I can't even get to them. But yeah, I mean, being good at D.Va can certainly help. It isn't gonna like fully help though. And that's also why, once again, Pharah has a 58% unmirrored win rate. I have to make sure I specify unmirrored because sometimes players will be like, oh, well, you know, but if a Pharah's in every game, they're always gonna get a win. So most of the data, when they speak on the data, is when they aren't going up against a Pharah. So as of right now, if you have a Pharah on your team, or vice versa, but not on one of the other teams, there's a 58% chance the team with the Pharah is going to win if you don't have a Pharah on the other team, which is a pretty high number. Next on the Reddit React here, we have from, Zealous? They say, tired of being blamed as a support for not healing when I'm getting dove. I was just playing a game in competitive, and I was playing Ana. Well, the enemy Doom dives me and forces me away from the push. I have had bad experiences with trying to run away back to my team, so I didn't and decided that, oh well, I can hold him off for a little before Sombra or someone gets here because I've been pinging him over and over again. Tell me why I look in the chat and Sombra, I don't know who Sombra is, but is saying on a heal, and I clearly tell them I'm getting dove by Doomfist, and it's hard to 1v1 a tank as a support. That's an interesting statement. And if I tried to run away, well, it's Doomfist, so he'll catch up. All I hear is 2 seconds later is Sombra saying, heal! I state again that I'm being dove, and that I've been pinging Doom, but nobody has been helping. Granted, I do manage to kill Doom, but it takes a while. And Sombra just says switch then. And I say I'm open to switching, but you need to understand that switching won't stop me from getting dove by Doomfist. Sometimes Reaper was with Doomfist, and they were both diving me. The other support was playing Kiriko, so she didn't get dove except for once. Okay, a lot to unpack here. One, your Sombra shouldn't rely on you for heals, ever. Just to give an idea, if you're playing Sombra and you're expecting your support to be the one that heals you, you're probably not playing Sombra correctly. Sombra's a lot about rotating around the map, getting health packs, doing all these really cool plays. Sombra is definitely not a hero that needs to be pocketed the whole time. Same thing with like Wrecking Ball. Don't rely on your supports, always expect to rely on health packs. Second of all here, it sounds like you just kind of had like an experience in a game and you just wanted to like mention it to people that like not to do this. What I will say is, yes, it can be tough. 1v1 in the tank as a support is definitely possible. Not easy. I'm not saying if a Reinhardt runs at you as Ana that you're going to win that 1v1, but like, you know, against a Doom, if you do your cooldowns correctly, you're going to have a good time. I think this is more along the lines of you were in a game where you had somebody who was playing a character that should not rely on supports to be healed and was relying on you to get healed. Why you got dove. I love how you said you can't 1v1 a tank, or it's hard to, and you still end up winning the Doomfist 1v1. Go Moira if this happens. I mean, honestly, you said your teammate was Kiriko. I don't know what rank you're in. Just go Moira. I know that's like, people are like, oh, you're telling people to go Moira. What are you doing? It's pretty simple. If you're getting dove and you're not getting help from your teammates and they refuse to help you, you have two options. You sit on Ana and you keep getting dove and you finish with 15 deaths, or you say, screw this, I'm going to go Moira, and you at least can survive their dive. Can't tell you how the game's going to go, but at that point, you're solving an issue. if your teammates are refusing to help you. And I still think that's why you see a lot of players lean towards Moira, and even more so, like, you probably see more and more players playing Kiriko over the past year. People just don't want to deal with getting dove. And you'll sit there and you'll ask your teammates for help, and they'll ignore you. They might, and they could be they're out of voice chat, it could be they're tunnel visioned, but they ignore you. And then the only time they don't ignore you is when you finally switch to Moira. They go, why'd you go Moira? And you go, I just talked about why I needed to go Moira this whole time, and now you finally say something after the last 5 minutes where I've been telling you I've been getting dove the whole time. Sometimes you have to go the mobile heroes if your teammates aren't willing to help you, because you're going to be better off, you know, having 5 deaths on Moira than 15 deaths on Ana, especially when that happens. On the next one here from Tortoise, they say, what do I do if people complain about my pick but never elaborate? Oh, what a great question that is. The classic switch, insert hero there. What I love about that one is that a lot of the time the people telling you to switch to never play the role. I haven't read the whole question here, but like they've never played that role, but they always can tell you what to swap on, no matter what. Like you'll have a DPS player telling a tank player what to play the whole game. They have never played tank, but they'll tell them the whole time what to do and what to switch to and what to go. Anyway, it says, it's happened a lot to me recently that there's a complaint about something. I mean, that's Overwatch. Usually just, please use a better support, because I mainly play Lucio and Zenyatta. I then ask them who I should play, and they thoroughly ignore me, and sometimes continue to complain, and then still ignore me when I ask them again what support they want. Are Lucio and Zen just that bad, or is there something else I can do? Is there a secret strategy to get them to communicate with me? No. So, one, Lucio and Zen are fine. I would say that Zen's going to be hit or miss in some ranks, and I only say that because, I'll explain why. Zenyatta is a very good hero, but a lot of players don't know how to play around such a, like, low healing. And what I mean by that is, like, if you have a Reinhardt, a lot of Reinhardts always just assume that they're going to be able to be pocketed the whole time and play really aggressive and, like, really out of position. So they automatically assume it's the Zenyatta that is the issue, when in reality, it's their position. A lot of it just relies on your teammates to have good positioning so you can get the full value of Zenyatta. And players just don't know how to play around less healing. And the same thing goes for Lucio, where your heal is in, like, bursts. So, like, you can burst heal your teammates very well with heal boosts, but, like, in between that, it's a lot of that poke damage that players just always want to take. So, a lot of it's just players wanting you to bring more heal into it. But, like, sometimes that's more on the player's play style and position, and then it's on your hero pick. Is that making sense? You also have the players that right away assume someone's the problem, spend the whole game focused on everything they're doing wrong and nothing they're doing right, and that happens too. In the end, in this one, I just play what you think is best and give it your all with that. If they give you maybe something that's like, they go, hey, we want to go Ana, because I always say, when you want someone to swap, you give them, sometimes given reasons can help. It's like, oh, can we go Ana because of this, right? Not swap, please. And it happens to me in my game, so they'll be like, swap, and I'm like, okay, what do you want? And they'll be like, oh, a different tank. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you want here? Because the tank we're on technically is good against what they're doing. What can I go to help you? And they don't give you any answer. They just assume that you need you to swap. So basically, what do you do if people do this? Go with what you think's the best pick. And if they don't communicate with you and you say, is there a secret strategy to get them to communicate with you? Nope, they're probably just going to complain. Here goes the next question we have from Winston, Maine. Interesting question on this one. Why does nobody play Ramattra? Looking at his pick rates on Overbuff, he's bottom 3 picked in all ranks. For me, I only really see him to counter swap Rein. To me, he's a fun character. He's strong, badass if that counts for anything, and played quite a bit in pro play, though mainly due to his team play. Why is it that nobody plays him, do you think? What could be changed to make him picked more? 300 character, 300... what the... 300 character, 300... What is that? What does that mean? Did you count how many words you typed? Wait a second. You need 300 characters to post? So they asked the question and then put 300 character at the end of it to be able to hit the limit on the question? I love how they didn't even try to add an extra sentence of substance here. They're just like, dude, I just need to know this question. I'm just putting 300 character in there. Honestly, I respect it. They didn't even hide that they were trying to make it 300. They could have went like, what do you think? They could have added like some like, like fluff to the question, filler to the question. Nope. Straight to the point. I'm getting this to 300 characters. Anyway, it is a very good question, though, because I do feel like Ramattra is a good hero. But one of the problems I also run into with Ramattra could be different, or problems that I run into Ramattra could be different in other ranks. It feels like it's really hard to gap close as Ramattra now. It feels like the game is so spam and deathmatch heavy that the strength of Ramattra is when they stack together, and because they're not stacking together as much anymore, you lose so much value in Ramattra, and that, like, even when you get your ultimate now, you notice how when you get your ultimate now, you pretty much get destroyed most of the time? Like, do you ever, like, pop your ultimate and think you're going to do something and you just get rolled? I think they might eventually bring speed boost up on Ramattra's ultimate, because it feels like right now you're running into, like, the reliance of your teammates again, very much what Reinhardt runs into. And because if you don't have the correct hero swaps, you just get kited away. So your majority of your gameplay loop on Ramattra becomes 85% shooting your Doritos and 15% going into Nemesis form to hold right-click and do nothing. Granted, every rank will feel differently, and somebody, like, might be in, like, silver right now going, what do you mean? I get destroyed by Ramattra and Ramattra Ultimate. And that I can totally understand. But I think a lot of it is that Ramattra right now, for what you have to do to get value sometimes, just feels like it isn't worth the trade-off of other heroes or tanks that you can play. Like, you ever play Ramattra right now, and with Mauga being, like, a go-to, like, counter swap, that you just sit there as Ramattra and you go, I can't finish the limb on Mauga now, because if I shoot at Mauga, they eventually get cardiac overdrive, then they cardiac overdrive, and then I get rolled, and I have to go into defensive form, and you just, like, you can't do anything. I think that's why Ramattra isn't being played. It's just, it's really hard to find value that other heroes can bring to the table. I don't think Ramattra is necessarily bad by any means. I think Ramattra is a good hero. I just think Ramattra has slowly fallen into, like, this niche category of hero swap that you really only go Ramattra, kind of like exactly what was said here, you know, against, like, a Reinhardt. You can also kind of sneak in, like, Ramattra play against, like, a Winston, for example, and I only say that because you can, like, Nemesis form to the bubble, take away some value, you can Vortex correctly. But I think it's just Ramatra's kind of lost in the current scheme of where Overwatch is, especially where they're making it more spam heavy with Pharah being meta too. So, but it all depends. It's also meta based too, right? Yeah, like when Pharah is the dominant DPS hero right now, are you going to play Ramattra? Probably not. And Pharah is the dominant DPS hero right now. The number one comment here says, because it's so inefficient for rank play. Actually, I kind of want to read some of this. I'm going to read the TLDR. No carry potential, weakened to Mauga Hog, doesn't counter anything, too dependent on teammates. Wow. Honestly, great comment by this person here, because that's kind of what we just talked about, right? This one's from Arya here. Says, hot take. Zarya versus D.Va is a pretty fair fight. Where's the hot take at? I'll continue on in a bit here. Everyone says Zarya counters D.Va. But as a D.Va main, sometimes I think Zarya is one of the more even tanks, tank v tanks. Zarya beats D.Va DM, D.Va flies, and Zarya does not. D.Va has extreme movement, Zarya does not. D.Va can eat Zarya ult, Zarya can time a bubble to get charge off of a D.Va ult. I do want to talk about this very quickly here, because have you ever noticed that it's usually, and I'm not saying this is across the board, but chat knows I play a lot of D.Va, right? I play a lot of D.Va. It's a known thing. Whenever we have the discussion here about D.Va versus Zarya, I always say, no, I think D.Va's actually pretty good against Zarya. I think a lot of players don't really, they just, like, run it down mid. Let me give you an example. Zarya versus D.Va in King's Row, I don't like that matchup. There's too many things. You put me on D.Va on Dorado, Gibraltar, Second Point Eichenwald, etc. You see, like, the trend of these maps, high ground-based maps. I'll take D.Va over Zarya any day of the week, because I can dictate where the team fight happens. I can dictate where I engage the Zarya. On maps where you have mobility and room to work, like, Zarya versus D.Va is a totally fine matchup, because all that you have to do at that point is really just count bubbles. So I always give the rule of thumb of, like, count 3 bubbles, and then you can just destroy a Zarya. The reason why is because the first bubble happens, then when they use the second bubble, there's, like, a window where their next bubble will come up, and then they're usually on, like, a 10-second, 8-second cooldown, and those are your timings. So a lot of the time, you're just going to count bubbles. Like, that's what you do, right? I'll go to the next part here. So they say, yes, if Zarya forces 1v1 and D.Va takes it, D.Va probably loses. Well, yeah, if you take the 1v1 straight on. But D.Va can just fly away, fly up. Exactly. If Zarya follows, we go back. She can follow us so much, but ultimately we can outrun her and get to her backline. She can get to ours too, sure, but I can get a pick and fly back and peel. Zarya can't. I will say, if your playstyle is always, I can go to the backline and trade with the Zarya. I will say, if Zarya is charged, Zarya wins that advantage. And by the time your trades matter, Zarya might clean up your whole team. But I also understand that point because, like, it's very map dependent. They feel that the tank that really hacks up D.Va is Hog. Also no movement, but he can hook me if I fly away. It's true. I mean, D.Va versus Hog, that matchup sometimes, especially when you play against like a Hog connoisseur, can be frustrating because you can't really do much. You have to play kind of static. Hook plus trap plus shot or two, and I'm toast. But I actually do think D.Va versus Hog is also good. It's when you play against a good Hog that makes D.Va difficult at times. You can still get value. I can eat some, but not his entire ult, even with a full DM. Because I mean, what? Roadhog's ultimate's only, what, 69 seconds long? And it almost never is because Hog can force me to DM for my teammates who got hooked. And Hog is way harder for my backline to escape as opposed to Zarya. So I just can't keep out of his range and expect for my team to survive. One little side note I want to do here before I read this next paragraph. Is it me? And I don't know if it's just like a me thing, and I don't think it's reaction time. But like, sometimes I defense matrix a hook, and it doesn't work. Is that just me? Like, and chat will hear me. I'll defense matrix a hook, by the way, and I'll go, dude, what just happened? And like, I'll look back at it and everything works and like, it looks like it's perfect. And then I'm just like, what did it do? I'm like, what happened? But I'll look at it and everything's in range, everything's perfect, and it just does not work. Yeah, it comes down to latency, but like, it can feel frustrating when that happens, which is why it can also feel tough sometimes against Hook. You can't DM Hook, like if they, so to give you an idea, just to give context to that, I'm not saying you can defense matrix the hook when they throw it. You defense matrix the follow-up to the hook. Does that make sense? The Hog hooks somebody and you hook where they're going to shoot them, it will stop the shot. So your defense matrix in the hook taking the value away, right? Because once you stop the first shot, you're generally going to be able to help your teammate a lot more. So then they say, now if the enemy tank goes Zarya and the DPS goes Sim and the support go Moira, okay, now I've got a problem. Because I can avoid fighting Zarya, but I can't get away from Sim and Moira as well. But that's more of a group counter. Zarya alone, I think, is fairly balanced for D.Va. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I've always been on the side of D.Va versus Zarya is a lot of a better matchup than people think. I still think it's map dependent against the Zarya. Like I said, if you tell me to play D.Va on first point King's Row against the Zarya, I probably won't do that. Maybe I can get away with it with going around the map. Second point, definitely not. Third point, probably not. Point being is that very map dependent. I do think there's more maps that will favor D.Va than Zarya, if that makes sense. I think more maps will favor D.Va just because of like map control and mobility. The flip side of that, if you have a fully charged Zarya running it down in your team, even if you're the best D.Va in the world, you still may struggle on that in a rank setting. All right, then we have Thin Tap here saying, can an ult get value with ult getting the limbs? Oh, yes. Oh, well, don't even get me started. Basically what the title says, I played a game earlier as a Yari and ulted, but didn't get any limbs. It struck 4 people and got close to detonating, but the Lucio ulted and Kiriko Suzu'd it. But does this still bring any value to my team? Yes! Since it's brought out a cooldown and an ult from the enemy team, making it less to worry about, I guess. It's a minor thing, but just had me wondering if ults can still bring value, even if it doesn't get any limbs, but lures out other ults/cooldowns. Also, just want to add that I'm still learning the game. I'm in lower ranks and not 100% on everything yet. Yeah, of course it does. Oh, 100%. Sometimes, and I always talk about this, there's players that will always try to get these amazing top tier ultimates that are just like supposed to be unreal, and you do this and you do it's like, oh wow, great. Here's the thing. You're not going to be able to get 5 limbs with every ultimate. You're not going to be able to team wipe. Sometimes, for example, in top 500, getting the limbs with D.Va ult can be very difficult. So let me ask you this question. If I D.Va ult in, and their team is forced to run into my team because of a D.Va ult that gets 0 limbs, is that a good ultimate? More than likely, yes. Because if I force them out of position into my team, we now win a team fight for free without getting any limbs. There's value there, right? Yeah, you can get value with getting limbs. Now, if you shatter a wall and nobody's around you as Reinhardt, are you getting value there? No, that's not. You're not getting any ult value there, right? So, like, obviously, there's going to be situations where, like, you're going to have bad ultimates. It just happens. Like, I have bad ultimates on Sigma all the time. But yeah, of course. I mean, without a doubt, basically, if you got forward with your ultimate here and they Lucio ulted and Suzu'd it, you've already gotten more value than you could ask for outside of a limbs. Because now you have Suzu out, one of the best abilities in the game, if not the best ability in the game. You got Lucio ult out, which will get rid of some of the frustration of being able to follow up in a limbs. Yeah, it's a great ult. I have nothing to say. Outside of that, that's good. The #1 comment is yes. All right, anyway, what's the best mentality for Overwatch competitive? As the title asks, what's the best mentality for Overwatch competitive? I've been on a journey. See, this is the person who gets it, by the way. This is the person who got the homework assignment of you need to post at least 300 characters to be able to post this, because they just asked the same question. This is the filler sentence we talked about. Remember earlier when we had the 300 character person? This is the person just adding the question again to get the 300 characters. That's the difference there. That's the filler question to get the 300 characters. Then you have the other person. 300 characters, 300 characters, 300. I've been on a journey to improve, but I found myself not having all that much fun recently. Ironically, I lose more games now that I've been trying to improve, and it's demoralizing. What makes the game fun for you? For those who are higher ranked, what lessons did you learn that changed your mentality and helped you climb up? I got you. One game at a time. And I say that a lot, and I try to like explain it to people a little bit more now. I always say one game at a time for a reason. A lot of players will take their previous rank game and bring it to the next rank game. And what that can do is that can kind of put you on tilt into your next rank game. If you start to get in the mentality of one game at a time, win or lose that game, you just go to the next game with like a fresh slate. A lot of the time you'll see success in that because you're not bringing in that like the previous game you had a frustrating experience, and then you bring that to the next game, and now you're playing at a different level, a more tilted, etc. So just if you can get in the mindset of like next game, one game at a time, it can help a ton. I still don't even do that perfectly, right? I'm pretty chill in rank, chat knows that. But even I will still have that like last game in my mind for a little bit at the time. I definitely don't do it every game. I can, I probably do it like 1 in every 10 games where like you have such a frustrating experience. But like overall, one game at a time. And I'm telling you, you'll see more success. I also think sometimes players will... Do you ever notice that like... And then I know people will talk about MMR here, but you ever notice that like some people will have 2 accounts? They have their main account that they'll take their rank games very seriously. Like almost like too serious to the point where like they play not to lose when in reality you need to play to win. And then they'll play in their alt account and they play a little bit more loose and a little bit more relaxed. They go on a 7-game win streak because they don't care about their rank as much anymore. But because they're playing a little bit more carefree and playing more to win and more playmaking ability, they win more. A lot of that has to do with the idea that like players will start to really like get into like their rank game on what's considered their main, and they're like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do like. Sometimes you just vibe out, you have a good time, and you'll find that you'll win a little bit more. I'm not saying vibe out, have a good time, run it down mid, but like if you play a little bit more to like, you go to make a play, you go and do this, you're willing to try to do more because you're not so worried about your rank as much, you start to go, oh, wait a second, this worked, that worked, and then you play a lot better. But start with the one game at a time. Yeah, you play less scared, exactly. Good way to explain that. You play less scared, right? And when you play less scared, you're going to probably climb more because you're not playing like, you're not like saving your ability, your ultimate for 4 team fights because you just feel like, oh, I need to win this game. But like in reality, that is actually going to lose you the game because you're playing way too safe. Things like that can help. The truth is that some people progress in 2 weeks playing rank. Some people progress in 6 months. Sometimes you'll be playing for 6 months straight and then something clicks. No idea what it is. And just out of nowhere, something clicks and you climb up 3 ranks. But I always just say one game at a time. Number 1 comment here says, same advice everyone gets. Don't focus on wins and losses. Focus on your own skill growth. Very good, very good. I agree. Did you play better than this game than your last? If not, why and what you should have done differently? All of that I can agree with. Be patient with the climb. Take your time. Work on what you can do to improve. You're going to lose games that you should win. You're going to win games that you should lose. You're going to have games where you go 2-10. You're going to have games where you go 30-2. Learn from those games, and you'll pop off. Great follow-up comment there, too, on the and in the comments. This is the last Reddit react we have coming up. This is from Spectre saying, we're over a season through. Was the Season 9 patch good or bad for the game overall? I'm going to say yes, but I'll read this. We'll see what their point is, and we'll go from there. As you may be aware, the Overwatch Season 9 patch did a lot in terms of changing how the game is played, both as a casual and in ranked play. There are heroes that thrived as a result of it, and heroes that are still yet to fully recover. Playstyles were created, changed, or altogether removed because of it. Players find themselves in completely different positions in ranked ladder compared to where they used to be. The latest DPS passive is shown to be beneficial in some instances while being a detriment in others. Projectile sizes increases, making shots easier to hit. There are a number of things too many for me to go through in this one post that Season 9 change. But I wanted to get people's thoughts on the patch overall with the benefit of hindsight. Not so much picking it apart, but taking a step back and looking at the overall impact of the patch. So the reason why I think Season 9 was good for the game, whenever we do Reddit Reacts, whenever we do like discussion points, I don't mind if you disagree. I'm not going to be one to be upset about that. I'm not going to sit here and be like, no, I'm always right. You got to do that. Like, I like the discussion points of stuff. What I will say to this is what I liked about Season 9, we're going to ignore all of the like the DPS passive, things like that, right? Because there's things that people don't like that people do like. The one thing that I think Season 9 did was it made it so they are willing to change the game in major ways that we've never seen. And what I mean by that is Season 9 was the first time that they keep in mind, Season 9 was like the most amount of, like, I'm not sure if it's the most popular season outside of, it's the most popular season they had outside of probably Season 1 of Overwatch 2. And a lot of that is because they changed the game up in some form. Was it perfect? No. Is there balance issues? Yes. Are there things that are not fun about it? Of course. But what it did is it just changed the game. And Overwatch is a game now, 8 years later, that sometimes just needs to feel fresh. And like, you can't rely on a new hero every other season to carry the game. You can't rely on a new map to carry a season, right? You just can't. It's just not a thing in Overwatch where like, that used to be the bread and butter of Overwatch, and in a live service game nowadays, it's not, because then people just recognize filler seasons and they don't want to play. They just don't want to go and play the game because it's what's considered a filler season. A filler season is a season where like you can tell that they're amping up for the next season, so they give you kind of like an in between season that may not be the best, and they call it a filler season. So Season 9, which is an odd season, which is a non-hero season, was considered a filler season, and it ended up being a more popular season than Season 10. So the point I'm getting at here is that I think it was good for the overall like trajectory of where they can go with the game, but they also need to be willing to make changes like this more consistently. Otherwise, players will start to look at the patch and be like, oh, well, this isn't as good as it could be, could have been. I like the concept of that, of what they're doing with that. Is this current season a filler season? Yes, this season is very much a filler season. Exactly. Season 9 was the season where they kind of, I think, redid some of the ranked stuff, and then, yeah, they redid ranked, and they also did all these like major changes to balance, and people enjoyed it. It was a very popular season. It's a good question. I think there's a lot of discussion here. There's going to be good discussion on why it was bad, why it was good, but I think like them willing to make major changes to the game is where I look at this with Season 9. I just like that they were willing to make major changes, and I hope to see them make more major changes consistently, because that's what will keep the game fresh and keep people coming back to the game, having new people try the game, having players find different ways to enjoy it. That's how you do that. If they rely purely just on a new hero, then like sometimes the new hero may not even be able to carry the season. Remember the Lifeweaver release? You were throwing quick play games on Lifeweaver. And I say that because, you know, usually in quick play you can kind of vibe out, have a good time, you know, practice heroes. Even in quick play, Lifeweaver was getting nothing done. The point I'm making there is that major changes to the game can be good. Obviously, they can be bad at times, but like I think it can be good to have major shakeups to the game. And honestly, like even this season, we have the quick play hacked, which very much points to the direction of another major shakeup to the game when it comes to like upgrades, hero upgrades, and passives, etc. If they go down that route, another major shakeup to the game. So we'll see though. Number one comment here says, as a tank main, I find the outcome of my matches extremely dependable on a DPS performance. Agreed. Since the Season 9 changes, my job has been to stay alive longer than the other tank and hope my DPS can outplay the enemies. I have no agency in my matches aside from not completely throwing. The game feels really boring for tanks in my opinion. Also, there are no rewards whatsoever for playing ranked. I've talked about that. The matches are exhausted for tanks and the reward are just non-existent for me. I found myself playing less and less of this game, unfortunately. Now, flip side of that, if we're going to talk about tanks, yes, tanks are way worse ever since Season 9. Keep in mind, I am a tank player, so for anybody new to the channel watching this going, oh, what do you mean tank? I am a tank player. I know how this feels. I know exactly what you're talking about, so I get that. Season 9 made tank worse. The way I've brought that point up is that they've posted over the past year, almost 2 years now, that they want Overwatch at its core to still be a team game, but they still want to give players the ability to make plays, because in Overwatch 1, you couldn't do that. So they want a DPS player to make an individual play. They want a support player to make an individual play. Problem is that while the DPS role and the support role have moved towards more playmaking ability, they've left the tank role in the Overwatch 1 style that was initially envisioned of teamwork-based. So when you're moving the game away from teamwork-based and you're leaving the tank in that area, relying on teamwork, but you're taking the other two roles and relying less on teamwork, what happens? Of course, the role that is left behind in all of that is not having fun. And that's why a lot of tank players are experiencing that. It's going to sound interesting coming from a tank player. I do not want to see them make tanks raid bosses, because what's going to happen is it's going to make it super unfun for DPS and support, and then you're back to square one. Anyway, that's my Reddit React. If you like these videos, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts and everything. Once again, we don't mind great discussion. We also might use some of those discussion points in another video where we do YouTube reacts, YouTube comment reacts, which have always been a good video too. So feel free to put points in there. Like I said, I'm not going to be too mad if you disagree. I'm going to be pissed off if you do. I got to be right all the time. Okay, no, but you get what I'm saying. It's okay to like have good discussion. Make sure it's good discussion though. Don't get sometimes people get a little bit too angry in those discussions. So leave a comment, all that stuff. It helps. We also record these live on stream. If you look below the webcam, you can see the Twitch chat right there. We have a lot of fun here, so stop by if you haven't. With that being said, I hope you all have an amazing day/night.